doing well. I hope you're all right. I hope you're safe. I hope you're having a nice time as the autumn sets in. Now, my apologies that this is being uploaded slightly later than I normally would on a Wednesday. Ordinarily, I record this video a couple of days ahead so that we've got time to edit it, process it, upload it. But things have been quite busy with preparing resources, getting ready for the students to be back in, getting ready to start teaching again next week. So I haven't been able to record ahead of schedule, so I'm sat here on Wednesday morning hoping to be able to record and edit quite quickly and upload and still get it out on a Wednesday. So yeah, thank you for bearing with me on that one. So I'm sat downstairs currently waiting for the postman while I record this, waiting for quite an exciting parcel to arrive. It's not Dreamstone casts, unfortunately, although fingers crossed the first batch of castings will be out to me this week. So if you're waiting for base sets, keep your eyes peeled for an email letting you know that your stuff will be on its way very soon. No, what I am waiting for is something rather exciting from Jason. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, I'll show you when it arrives. But if I get up excitedly and rush to the door, that will be what that is. I thought, as I'm now working on the new supplement for the woods, I'd go back to a couple of videos talking about the woods, doing a short series on the origins of some of the creatures that are featured in the book and featured in the miniatures, but you won't find them listed in folklore. They're kind of specific to the world of the woods and to Oakbound. But I thought I'd talk a little bit about how those creatures came to be in the world, how I've put the races together, the creature types together, and where they draw their inspiration from over the next couple of videos. And appropriately, as I've spent the last couple of weeks talking about Hero Quest, and as this is the first in this series, I'm going to be talking about the creature types that really started Oakbound. They were the first things that we did, the reason that Oakbound exists. And those are the Myeri, or the Myeri, or the Myeri, or it's fancy. Say it how you want, and I'll return to the name a bit later on. So that yeah, we'll talk about the name a bit later on. But I say appropriately to Hero Quest because if you're familiar with Hero Quest, as I'm sure most of you are, you'll be familiar with the Fimir, who are the sort of third tier creatures on the greenskins side. So on the undead side, you've got zombies who are a bit crap, skeletons who are pretty average, mummies who are quite good. So on the greenskin side, you've got goblins who are a bit crap, orcs who are quite normal, and then Fimir who are quite hardcore. Well, if you play the American version, if you play the English version, none of the monsters are that hardcore, not even the gargoyle. You know, he'll fall over in one hit. But play the US version, they can take a bit of dealing with. And that was my first encounter with the Fimir, and I really got into Warhammer and wargaming quite a few years after my experience with Hero Quest, which was when the 4th edition was in, and Games Workshop had dropped Fimir from their catalogue. They were no longer a part of the Warhammer world. And so the only information that I had on Fimir was the stuff that was in Hero Quest, the stuff that was in the Marvel Winter Special that they did on Hero Quest, which wasn't very much, just a few lines, a bit of a paragraph maybe, in the Monstrous Regiment article, and then although we were playing 4th edition, I had the 4th edition rulebook, a friend of mine had the 3rd edition rulebook, which actually I now have. I sort of inherited that from him, and that the rebinding of that one that fell apart was what triggered my Encyclopedia Warhammer project. So it's nice to keep that in house. But that in the 3rd edition rulebook, there's maybe, I think it's about half a page on the Vermeer with a grainy picture of the Jes Goodwin Vermeer. And that gave me some stats to use the HeroQuest models as a unit in Warhammer Fantasy Battle, but it didn't really give me much in the way of background, and the internet wasn't a thing, and I didn't know about the Warhammer Fantasy roleplay because nowhere near me was stocking it, so I didn't have any more information. You couldn't get back editions of White Dwarf that had the details on them in. So that was all the information that I had on them. I really liked the look of them as a creature. And entirely separately to that, I was reading this book. Well, not actually this book, but this a copy of this book that I got from my local library. And this one actually, a very nice, friendly gentleman on the Old Hammer forum sent to me, so I do now have a copy in my possession. But this is Irish Folk and Fairy Tales by Michael Scott, and it goes through a lot of Irish folklore or Irish myth, retells it in a narrative form. And the reason that this is a significant book is that the first chapter of this book deals with the Fomorians and the early fights against the Fomorians that are found in the Irish Book of Invasions. And the Fomorians really form the basis for the Warhammer lore on the Vermeer. Very much related. Now, I didn't make that connection because I didn't have the sources to make that connection when I was a kid. Even though on the back there's the Alan Lee picture that became the basis for the Jes Goodwin prototype Vermeer, which is featured in the 3rd edition rulebook. But in the 3rd edition rulebook, it's a grainy photo, and he's pointing in the opposite direction from the way that he's pointing on the book, and he doesn't have a cloak. So I guess I can be forgiven for not making that connection. But he does have the round face and the one eye and the teeth, so maybe I should have put that together earlier. But when I got back into collecting fantasy wargaming bits and pieces, I really wanted to create a Vermeer army because I just loved the idea of them as a kid. There's some of the lore that's a bit dodgy. I didn't know that at the time. I have since reworked that, and have a look on my blog if you want to see how I've reworked the Vermeer lore to be not quite so horrific. But actually, some of the stuff in Celtic myths is pretty horrific. So yeah, okay, it's not kid friendly, but it's not disproportionate to a lot of the stuff that you see in folklore. There's some pretty horrible stuff there. Anyway, I wanted to create a Vermeer army, and I had some I didn't have because I'd given away my HeroQuest sets. I repurchased quite a lot of HeroQuest Vermeer. I converted some Lizardmen into Vermeer. I got some of the Nick Bibby sculpts. I managed to pick up the Jes Goodwin sculpt. Spotted on eBay as a buy it now for $5.99. Yes, please. But there obviously weren't that many figures around for it. There still aren't. So I started sculpting some, and they were spotted. I posted them on the Old Hammer community saying, "Hey, this is what I'm doing." And a few people got in touch and said, "Have you considered getting them cast? We'd be interested in some sets." So I looked into it, and that's what I did. And so the first things that I did, I wasn't even Oakbound then, but Oakbound sort of emerged in order to sell them, were these not Vermeer models that were based partly on the look of the Vermeer in Games Workshop, but also quite heavily on another favourite from my childhood, Dark Crystal. You can probably see in the dragon kind of shape of the faces, the kind of long beaked snouts that perhaps aren't such a feature of the Games Workshop figures. They're a bit sort of longer and lankier, more like the Paul Bonner illustrations that were in White Dwarf than the actual sculpts ended up being. I like that kind of stringy but strong, quite lithe looking figures, and of course these big swords that were very heavily based on the trial by stone swords, and they became known as hackskull. If I could find the picture in here. There you go. So you see I've done the kind of carapace thing, and they've got these the long snouts here and the big swords, and these in the original cut of the Dark Crystal, the Skeksis are actually speaking a dialect that's based on ancient Egyptian, and it's not even subtitled. You can't work out what they're saying. I recommend you watch the scenes where the Skeksis are speaking ancient Egyptian. It is terrifying. If you thought these things were bad enough talking English, wait until they're talking incomprehensible, guttural language. It's brilliant. They should, in my opinion, they should have kept it like that. But I can see why they didn't. But this this event where they're contesting to see who's going to be emperor by chopping large chunks off this stone. In the English dub, it's called the trial by stone. In the original language, it's hakskika. So I took the former part of that, the huck, and that became the hackskull. The second part taken from the Saxon and Scandinavian huskal, or housegull, depending on how you want to say it. So those two kind of blended together into the name that I gave to the big sword that my guys were wielding. And that was really my inspiration. So when I was putting together the lore for the Myeri in the book, when I came to write that, you'll find there's bits of the Irish Fomorian myth in there, and there's bits of the Dark Crystal in there as well. And actually, when I came to publish the first rule book, you see this is the cover image here is actually the same as on the back here. I got a little bit worried when I was putting the miniatures out that I was going to get a cease and desist letter from Games Workshop saying, please don't sell this. This is definitely our intellectual property. You can't sell these miniatures. So I thought, well, you know, they're all based on this Alan Lee image. So maybe I just go to Alan Lee and I say, hey, do you still own the rights? Can I have them? So I wrote Alan Lee a letter and followed up with an email, and he's a very nice chap. And he said, yeah, I still own the rights to that. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the original copy of the picture. That was sent to the publishers. The publishers don't have it. No one knows where it is. So if you have any leads on where the original of this image is, I'd be very interested to know. But I was working with the scan on the back here, so that's why it's a little bit fuzzy. I had to tweak the colours a bit to try and get a decent image out of it. But anyway, Alan Lee was very nice and said, yes, I still own the copyright on that image. Yes, by all means, use it for the cover, use it for producing miniatures. Hence why I now have this chappie who is very, very much based on the Alan Lee drawing. So yeah, that's how he came to be on the cover. While I was putting this book together, I was actually on a honeymoon with my wife, naturally, in New Zealand. Because her mum's side of the family are from New Zealand, so we were going visiting relatives and then travelling around New Zealand for a bit. And I was reading on Maori myths and legends while we were travelling around. I thought, hey, you know, that would be an interesting thing to do, to try and combine some of what I've been writing on the Myeri with a bit of Polynesian influence as well, try and give them a bit of a different spin, make them feel really quite alien to a world that is otherwise going to be very rooted in British myth and folklore. And even, you know, Dark Crystal is quite druidic. It's quite British in its look and in its feel and in its mythology and background. So these are going to be creatures that are coming in borrowing from the Fomorian myth. They're creatures that have come from the sea to the land. And so let's bring in some other cultures into their background that make them feel a bit different, a bit stand out. So they have the Pukururu. I hope I'm saying that right. You know, if you speak Maori, please correct me if that's not how you say it. The kind of ancestor totems. They have a lot of jade that they wear. And their weapons, the horoa, and again, correct me if I'm saying that wrong, is the kind of spear club that the Maori warriors use. So that really kind of it gave a different, and the tattoos that they, you know, the body piercings and the scarification and the tattooing that they do on their body. That's all from the Antipodean myth side of things. And the idea was always going to be that they were an origin myth for the woods. They were going to be the first thing that happened was that you got these Myeri coming in from the sea, taking up residence in this castle. Then the Fae come in, oust them in much the same way as the Tuatha De Danann oust the Fomorians and are themselves ousted in the Book of Invasions. And really, the Myeri were going to disappear into the swamps, and other than the coverage in this book, you weren't really going to hear from them again. They were going to be a thing that came in and got pushed to one side and were lurking at the origin of history, but then disappear again. And what happened was that they were actually really popular. Always sell out. I sell lots of Myeri, probably more than anything else that I sell, hence, you know, resculpting a few waves. And if you're interested, by the way, these guys, the original ones that I did that are no longer available from Oakbound, these were picked up by Scotia Grendel. So if you're interested in getting your hands on some of these more dark crystally, gribbly sculpts, have a word with Scotia Grendel, see if they'll put them back into production because they have the rights to those. But yeah, they're a popular range, and lots of people have been asking me to build on it and to expand on it. So they're still in the rule book. They're still in the law. There's still a plan to release Coral Knights, and in fact, I'm writing a section on Coral Knight retinue warbands for the supplement. You've been able to take them as a battles unit in the main rulebook, but in the supplement you'll be able to take them as a retinue warband. So there'll be added pressure on me to create those. And with the just popping back to the Polynesian Maori references, you may be thinking, oh, Myeri, Maori, that's where that name comes from, you know, that's where that's been brought in. Well, actually, that's not true, because Clan Myeri was the name of my Vermeer army back before I'd even, you know, done those first sculpts and hadn't even considered bringing in any Maori folklore into the mix. I think, I can't remember totally where that name came from, but I think it just came from mere, you know, another word for bog, fen. They're the Myeri, they live in the mere. I think that's where it came from. It's just potluck, or perhaps it inspired me to add Maori into their folklore, as that's what their name was. Perhaps it was the other way around, but that's just potluck as to what their name became. So I will be adding to the range. I will be getting Coral Knights out at some point soon. I probably won't be issuing cease and desist against Games Workshop for using the rights that Avonlea gave me to create their own Forge World. For me, they seem to have stopped doing that. Maybe they're intimidated by my legal prowess. I don't know. I think that's unlikely. But anyway, I'm safe at least with the permissions to do those. And I will be pushing on in the future. So I hope that's been interesting for you to have a bit of a look at the inspiration behind those figures. I'm going to be looking at a couple more races in the next couple of videos. In the meantime, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you again.